My stepbrother framed me for theft, married my best friend, and now they expect me to plan their baby shower. I never saw my life turning into a spectacle that could rival a daytime soap opera, but somehow that's exactly what happened. If you'd told me a decade ago that I'd be navigating a feud with my stepbrother, who once framed me for theft, only to watch him marry my best friend and then audaciously demand I plan their baby shower, I would have laughed in disbelief. But here I am, living every excruciating moment of it. Sometimes I wonder if I should be penning a dramatic screenplay instead of trying to stitch together the shreds of my personal life. Still, as bizarre and painful as it's been, this is my story, a long, winding tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and the unexpected bonds that form when your world turns upside down. My mother, Clara, and Jordan's father, Malcolm, got married when I was 14 and Jordan was 16. Until then, I'd been an only child, raised by Mom in our modest house in the suburbs of Kettering. She and I had a close bond, just the two of us, weathering life's ups and downs after my biological father left years earlier. When she met Malcolm at a community fundraiser, they fell for each other hard and fast. Malcolm was a lawyer with a decent income, a ready smile, and an air of quiet confidence that set my mother at ease. Within a year of their first date, they were exchanging vows, and my world transformed overnight. Gone were the days of me occupying the second bedroom in our little home. Now we moved into Malcolm's bigger place across town, a spacious 2-story with a large backyard. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a family of 4 if you counted Jordan Malcolm's son from his first marriage. I was excited, at least on the surface. In truth, the thought of a stepbrother my age both thrilled and frightened me. I hoped we'd become friends, maybe bonding over the shared experience of 2 families merging. Jordan, on the other hand, didn't bother hiding his displeasure. He resented my mother's presence in his father's life, and he made it clear from the start that I was an unwelcome intruder. Still, I tried. I was all optimism at 14, naive enough to believe people would like me if I tried hard enough to be likable. Jordan had a certain charisma, though, a veneer of politeness when adults were around. He was tall, lanky, with a mop of blonde hair and a quick wit. Teachers liked him, often praising his intelligence, but beneath that shiny exterior lurked a mean streak that zeroed in on any perceived weakness. For me, that was my insecurity about fitting into a new school, about whether Malcolm would truly accept me, about whether I could live up to Jordan's academic achievements. Jordan smelled that insecurity like a shark scents blood, and he exploited it. Small pranks escalated to petty cruelties until I never felt fully safe in my own home. The real fracture came 2 years later, when I was 16 and Jordan 18, a high school senior. Mom had been saving up to buy me a secondhand car for my upcoming birthday. Nothing fancy, just a reliable used sedan. The plan was to keep it a secret until the day of my party. But Jordan found out, maybe overhearing a conversation between Mom and Malcolm, and decided to sabotage it. He'd been stewing for months, apparently jealous that Malcolm was paying more attention to me, or that I was overshadowing him academically now that I was thriving at school. Who knows his exact rationale? Jordan was always good at playing victim while quietly undermining others. One afternoon, just before my birthday, a sizable portion of the money Mom had stashed away went missing from the family safe. It was about $2,000. Malcolm discovered the theft first and told Mom, who was distraught. We searched the whole house, triple-checking the safe, the lockbox, every corner of every room. Nothing. The next day, Mom received a call from an unidentified number. The person on the line, a so-called concerned acquaintance, claimed to have seen me leaving a pawn shop downtown, pocketing a wad of cash. They suggested I'd stolen money from home, though they refused to give their name or any details. Initially, Mom and Malcolm refused to believe it was me. They cornered Jordan, who shrugged and pretended ignorance. But subtle seeds of suspicion sprouted. Mom even asked me, tears in her eyes, if I was desperate for something, or if maybe a friend had lured me into a bad situation. It all escalated when the police became involved. Malcolm, being a lawyer, didn't want to file a formal report yet, but he did some investigating. He discovered a slip of paper with an address to that same pawn shop in one of my desk drawers. I swear I had never seen that piece of paper before, but there it was in my handwriting, except it wasn't my handwriting. It was a close imitation, though. At 16, I felt my world tilt on its axis. The evidence was stacking against me. The phone tip, the suspicious slip of paper, the missing money. I was frantic, defending myself with tears and pleas, but the house was charged with tension. Even my mother, who trusted me more than anyone, grew anxious and uncertain. Finally, after a miserable week of suspicion, the truth emerged. My mother found Jordan's old phone hidden in the basement. She went through it, stumbled across messages Jordan had sent to a friend, bragging about how he was going to frame me. He'd typed gleefully about forging my handwriting and staging that phone call to discredit me. The theft itself was never recovered. Jordan had apparently spent or hidden the money somewhere, but the illusions were shattered. There was no question about my innocence or Jordan's guilt. Chaos ensued. Malcolm was furious, threatened to send Jordan to live with his biological mother, possibly even press charges if the money wasn't returned. Jordan claimed it was all a prank that got out of hand, that he never spent the money, but he couldn't or wouldn't produce it. My mother was livid, physically shaking whenever she glanced at Jordan. We demanded an apology, but Jordan sneered, saying it was my fault for being too perfect and hogging all the attention. The atmosphere at home became toxic. I avoided Jordan at all costs. If I saw him in the hallway, my heart hammered with anxiety, fearing what new scheme he might concoct. Malcolm, in a final attempt at discipline, told Jordan he had to move out right after high school if he wouldn't return the stolen funds. That only fueled Jordan's resentment. He graduated, turned 18, and was gone from the house within weeks, leaving wreckage in his wake. I clung to my mother, who promised me we'd eventually heal. For a while, we did. Jordan was out of sight, out of mind. I finished high school, got that used car eventually, and tried to reclaim my sense of normalcy. My mother and Malcolm stayed together, though the tension with Jordan was a perpetual sore spot. We never saw him on holidays. Occasionally, Malcolm would meet Jordan for lunch, which rarely went well. I grew up, went to college locally, and found a small but solid group of friends. My best friend, Serena, was among them. She was vibrant, ambitious, always game for an adventure. We'd met in a creative writing class freshman year. I found her fearless spirit infectious, and she loved my more grounded approach to life. Together, we navigated dorm drama, late-night study sessions, heartbreak over silly boys. I trusted her with everything, from my earliest memories to my biggest insecurities. She knew about Jordan and how he'd framed me. I told her every detail. She was outraged, vowing that if she ever met him, she'd give him a piece of her mind. We joked about that scenario often. College flew by. Serena and I graduated. I moved into a small apartment and began working at a local marketing firm. Serena stayed in the area too, chasing her dream of becoming a journalist. We talked almost every day, grabbed brunch on weekends, spent birthdays together. It was during this post-college era that I first heard Jordan had also settled nearby. News trickled through Malcolm, who heard from Jordan sporadically. But I was content to ignore that fact. My life was busy enough. I never dreamed Jordan would cross paths with Serena, or that he'd even think to approach her. But then everything changed. One Saturday afternoon, Serena called me, her voice brimming with excitement. She said she'd met this amazing guy at a local coffee shop, tall, charming, super intelligent, and so easy to talk to. She insisted I had to meet him, that we'd all get along great. I was happy for her. She was long overdue for a decent relationship, but she didn't tell me his name right away. It wasn't until their second date that she let it slip. His name's Jordan, ironically the same as your stepbrother's. Haha. She had no idea. My stomach plummeted. I demanded a last name. When she told me, I nearly dropped the phone. It was him, Jordan Hayes, my stepbrother turned nemesis. Panicked, I told Serena everything. Well, not everything, because she already knew most of it. But I elaborated on how twisted Jordan could be, how he'd stolen money, how he'd tried to ruin my life. I begged her not to see him again. She listened quietly, then said something that shocked me. She wanted to give him a chance. She insisted people could change, and that I'd only known him when we were teenagers. He'd told her a different story, painted himself as the black sheep overshadowed by me. She admitted that he told her some version of the theft fiasco, but claimed it was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. I was furious. She believed him, or at least she believed he'd matured. I told her I wouldn't stand in her way, But I pleaded caution, reminded her how manipulative he was. She nodded sympathetically, but pressed on, enthralled by his charm. Over the next few months, Serena and Jordan grew closer. Every time I tried to warn her, she shut me down, insisting I was biased, that maybe he deserved a second chance. My heart sank as I watched them become an inseparable couple. Eventually, Jordan reached out to me directly, sending a carefully worded email about burying the hatchet for Serena's sake. I wanted no part of it. The pain he'd inflicted hadn't vanished. But I loved Serena like a sister, and I worried that refusing any contact might push her away. Hesitantly, I agreed to meet them for dinner, just once, to be civil. That dinner was excruciating. Jordan acted sweet, apologetic, praising Serena at every turn. In front of her, he apologized to me, said he'd been a dumb kid who did a cruel thing. I saw glimpses of the old smugness in his eyes, but he kept masked behind a polished facade. Serena was delighted, thinking we were forging a fresh start. We repeated such group outings sporadically, usually because Serena requested it, until it became more comfortable, if only superficially. Jordan went out of his way to ask about my job, my interests, even offered me connections he had through some marketing acquaintances. It was disconcerting, but part of me dared to hope maybe he'd reformed. Then, out of the blue, they announced their engagement. I almost choked when Serena told me over coffee one morning, waving her left hand with a dainty diamond ring. My jaw dropped. They'd been dating less than a year. She glowed with excitement, saying Jordan was her soulmate. I struggled to mask my dismay, hugging her and murmuring congratulations. Inside, I felt dread. Was she blindly tying herself to someone who'd once destroyed my family's peace? Serena asked me to be her maid of honor. I hesitated, imagining the wedding ceremony with Jordan at the altar, me forced to stand by Serena's side, smiling as if I endorsed it. But how could I say no to my best friend? Reluctantly, I accepted. The wedding planning was a blur. Serena, normally laid back, turned into a whirlwind of details. Venues, dresses, flowers. She wanted a spring garden wedding, simple but elegant. Jordan mostly deferred to her, though occasionally he'd pitch an idea or two for show. I went through the motions, helping pick bridesmaid dresses, tasting cake samples, biting my tongue whenever the conversation drifted to how wonderful Jordan was. The wedding day arrived, a crisp afternoon in May. The ceremony took place at a botanical garden, sunshine glinting off dew-speckled roses. Serena looked radiant in her ivory gown, her curly dark hair pinned back with blossoms. I wore a lavender bridesmaid dress, trying not to feel ridiculous. Jordan looked polished in a gray suit. I stood behind Serena, feeling a swirl of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to be happy for her. I loved her after all. But another part of me burned with worry about what Jordan might do. The vows sounded heartfelt, though I noticed how Jordan avoided meeting my eyes. They sealed it with a kiss. The crowd cheered, and my best friend became my stepbrother's wife. After the reception, I drove home, exhausted. If Jordan was truly reformed, maybe all would be well. But in the back of my mind, I remained anxious. Months passed. Jordan and Serena settled into newlywed life in a loft downtown. She gushed about how sweet he was, how he brought her flowers for no reason, how they planned future travels. I rarely saw them, except for the occasional double date or brunch invitation, which I accepted mostly out of loyalty to Serena. Each time, Jordan was unfailingly polite, but I sensed tension behind his smiles. I told myself it was probably residual awkwardness from our past. At least there were no new incidents. Life carried on. Then Serena confided to me she was pregnant. I was the first person she told besides Jordan. She showed me the test stick, tears of joy in her eyes. My heart wrenched, both thrilled for her, she'd always wanted kids, and uneasy that Jordan was the father. Still, I hugged her, congratulated her, felt that maternal surge of happiness for her. A baby was a big deal. She insisted Jordan was over the moon too, already planning a nursery. She asked me to keep it quiet until they announced it publicly. I agreed. Meanwhile, I steeled myself for the next phase of this bizarre saga. They told the family at a dinner gathering. My mother and Malcolm were there, along with some of Jordan's relatives, and me. Jordan made a toast announcing Serena's pregnancy. Everyone applauded. Mom was thrilled to become a grandmother figure. Malcolm looked proud. I clapped politely, watching Jordan soak up the attention. He cast me a significant glance, as if measuring my reaction. I forced a smile. Perhaps we were all truly moving forward. It was foolish to dwell on old wounds. Then the conversation drifted to baby celebrations, showers, gender reveals. I zoned out until Jordan's voice cut through. And Elena, we were hoping you'd plan the baby shower. You're so organized and creative. We can't think of anyone better. I almost choked on my water. Me? Plan their baby shower? The nerve. I stared at Jordan, dumbfounded, while Serena smiled encouragingly. My mother piped in, Elena's always been great at organizing events. Remember that fundraiser she helped with a few years back? Jordan nodded as though we were the best of friends. My instinct was to refuse immediately. The memory of him framing me for theft, of the heartbreak, slammed into my mind. Yet, across the table, Serena's eyes shone with anticipation. She clearly wanted me to be part of this milestone. And, as if that weren't enough, Malcolm leaned in, adding, we could have it at our place. The backyard is spacious. Wouldn't that be nice? My mother beamed too. They were all rallying around this idea. It felt like the walls were closing in. I didn't outright say yes then, just muttered something non-committal about, I'll think about it. The evening ended with congratulatory toasts, and I escaped as soon as possible. In the car, I broke down in tears, frustration boiling over. How could Jordan expect me to plan a shower for the man who nearly destroyed my reputation? A man who made my teenage years hell? Yet, it wasn't just about Jordan. It was about Serena, who was dear to me. She was elated about the baby. She probably just wanted me involved. But part of me suspected Jordan found pleasure in pushing me into a corner. Maybe this was his twisted version of a power move, forcing me to put on a happy face and publicly support him. I dreaded the thought, but I also knew refusing might drive a wedge between me and Serena. The next morning, I called my mother, hoping she might understand my reluctance. She listened quietly, then urged me to consider it, saying it might be a chance to truly mend fences with Jordan, to embrace Serena's happiness, to show we could all move forward. My mother, always the peacemaker, never fully grasped the extent of Jordan's cruelty toward me. Or maybe she believed wholeheartedly in chances. She said, remember, he apologized, and he's your best friend's husband now. Maybe this is an opportunity. I hung up, not reassured in the slightest, but I could see the bigger picture. If I refused, I'd look petty. Serena might be hurt. My mother and Malcolm might feel I was dwelling on the past. So after a sleepless night, I decided grudgingly to do it for Serena's sake. I called Serena, told her yes, I'd planned the baby shower. She was ecstatic, squealing into the phone about how grateful she was, how fun it would be. She rattled off some initial ideas, pastel color themes, a possible date in mid-spring, co-ed or not. I forced enthusiasm, noting it all down. She suggested I coordinate closely with Jordan since he had input on the guest list. My stomach churned. Terrific. She ended the call with, thank you so much, Elena. This means the world to me. I know Jordan and I can trust you. I hung up, feeling like I'd just stepped into quicksand. Thus began the strangest, most stressful event planning experience of my life. I typically liked planning parties. I had a knack for themes, decorations, schedules, but this was something else. Over the next few weeks, Jordan emailed me spreadsheets of potential guests, half of whom I'd never heard of. He wanted a big bash, it seemed, his colleagues, some old friends, extended family members. Serena, more low-key, just wanted a warm gathering with friends and family. Balancing their desires was tricky, but the real challenge was dealing with Jordan directly. Each conversation was tinged with unspoken tension, a game of forced politeness. He'd say, we trust your taste, Elena. After all, you're the golden child who always does things perfectly. It was framed as a compliment, but I heard the dig behind it. One day, we met in person at a cafe to finalize the theme. I was flipping through color swatches, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Jordan sipped his latte, eyeing me over the rim. Finally, he said, you know, I'm impressed you're doing this. I thought you still hated me. I kept my gaze on the swatches. I'm doing it for Serena, I replied curtly. He smirked. Right, of course. You'll never let go of the past, will you? My jaw tightened. You nearly destroyed my reputation, Jordan, I whispered, mindful of the other patrons. He leaned closer. You were always a little dramatic. We were kids. I said I was sorry. My hands trembled. That doesn't erase what you did. He shrugged. You have your version. I have mine. Anyway, I appreciate your effort. Let's make this shower a success, okay? The conversation moved on to cupcakes and balloon arches, but the tension remained thick. Months of planning crawled by. I found a caterer, designed custom invitations with Serena's input, booked a local bakery for a pastel cake. I even organized silly baby shower games, collecting baby-themed prizes. The date loomed in late April, hoping for mild weather so we could host part of it in Malcolm and my mother's backyard. All the while, Jordan and Serena gushed about baby names, nursery decor, how excited they were to be parents. I forced positivity around them. On nights alone, I'd replay Jordan's old betrayal in my head, feeling that old hurt gnaw at me. Then came another blow. A couple of weeks before the event, I discovered the caterer double booked and couldn't do our date. Panicked, I scrambled for a replacement, but found only pricey or unavailable vendors. Desperate, I asked Jordan if he had suggestions, given his wide network. He offered to call a friend who ran a restaurant. I reluctantly agreed. That friend, it turned out, could do it for a discount. I was relieved, though uneasy about relying on Jordan's connections. But what choice did I have? Meanwhile, Serena was at the stage of pregnancy where her ankles swelled and her energy waned. I tried not to bother her with logistical stress, wanting her to rest. She told me, "Whatever you plan will be perfect. I trust you." Hearing that both warmed and stung because Jordan lurked behind every arrangement. At least once or twice, I considered quitting altogether, but that would devastate Serena. I told myself to endure. Just get through the shower, then keep a distance. The day arrived. I woke up at dawn, nerves jangling. The weather was decent, partly cloudy, no rain forecast. My mother and Malcolm had set up tables in the yard, a fold-out canopy, a station for refreshments. I arrived early to direct the caterer, place decorations, set out party favors. Serena was coming later so she could make a grand entrance. Jordan hovered, of course, volunteering to help, but mostly just spouting opinions. I snapped at him once when he tried to rearrange the table centerpieces. "You said you trust my taste," I reminded him icily. He held up his hands in mock surrender, smirking. "Yes, ma'am." Guests trickled in. Serena's co-workers, Jordan's colleagues, a handful of old friends. My mother greeted them graciously, while Malcolm manned the grill for extra snacks. I darted around, ensuring everything was in place. The caterer arrived, setting up a small buffet. I exhaled in relief, grateful that at least the food was handled. Jordan was everywhere, shaking hands, flashing smiles. He thrived on attention. Then Serena arrived, glowing in a flowing dress that showcased her baby bump. Applause greeted her. She teared up, hugging me. "Thank you," she whispered, and for a moment I felt proud of the event. Maybe it'd be okay. We proceeded with typical baby shower festivities, gift opening, silly games, guess the baby food contests. People laughed, snapped photos. My mother gushed about how big Serena's belly had grown, while Jordan announced they'd chosen a name if it was a girl. The atmosphere was cheerful, the tension I carried, somewhat masked by the bright decorations and laughter. I actually found myself smiling, relieved that no drama had erupted. Maybe Jordan wouldn't pull anything. Maybe I'd wasted months dreading a sabotage that never came. But then, about an hour into the event, a commotion arose near the gift table. I saw a couple of Jordan's colleagues exchanging confused glances, rummaging under the table. One exclaimed, "Where did it go?" Another turned to me. "We left a baby gift here, but it's missing." My stomach clenched. Missing gift? People swarmed around. The colleague insisted they'd placed a wrapped box on the table upon arrival. Now it was gone. Everyone started checking around, thinking it might have been moved. My mother apologized, rummaging behind chairs. No luck. The package was nowhere to be found. Jordan approached, frowning. Strange. Who would take a gift at a baby shower? I tried to calm everyone, suggesting maybe it got placed with the other gifts accidentally. But it wasn't among the stacks. Tension crackled. Another guest piped in that they too were missing a small envelope containing a gift card. Suddenly, whispers of theft floated around. My mind flashed back to the teenage fiasco Jordan framing me. Was he doing it again? Setting up some scenario where theft overshadowed the party, pointing a finger at me? I shoved down the panic, telling myself not to jump to conclusions. I reminded people that sometimes gifts get misplaced, that we'd do a thorough check. Then someone found the empty wrapping paper behind the garage. The box's contents were gone, but the gift wrap bore the name of the colleague. A hush fell as we realized this was indeed a theft. My mother stared in horror while Malcolm tried to keep order. Jordan faked concern, exclaiming, "Who would do such a thing?" I felt everyone's eyes drifting to me. Why me? Because I was the organizer, the one who'd supposedly managed everything. Or maybe, in some twisted logic, because old rumors die hard. I braced myself, praying no one would accuse me. Serena, looking flushed, said, "This is insane. Maybe we should call the police." That only escalated the tension, with some guests urging calm while others insisted on immediate action. I recognized the pattern, a theft at a family event, me potentially in the crosshairs. My heart pounded. Jordan caught my eye, and I detected a flicker of amusement. Was he orchestrating this meltdown? I tried to stay composed, telling people we'd searched thoroughly, that maybe it was just a misunderstanding. The colleague whose gift was stolen seemed unconvinced. She asked me pointedly, "Were you watching the table? Who had access?" Before I could answer, Jordan stepped forward, explaining that lots of folks were around. No one was policing the area. He added, "Elena's been busy with hosting duties, so I doubt she saw anything." A subtle way to cast doubt on me while sounding like he was defending me. My pulse quickened, recalling his methods, carefully planting seeds of suspicion without directly accusing me. Then my mother found a small gift bag stashed oddly in a corner, opened. Its gift card was missing. More alarm. People started murmuring about calling the police, checking pockets. Malcolm tried to intervene, suggesting it might be a misunderstanding. Jordan, in front of everyone, turned to me. "Elena, you've been organizing everything. Did you see anything unusual?" I glared at him, my voice trembling. "No, I didn't. I was busy making sure guests were comfortable." He shrugged, turning to the group. "Maybe we should quietly check around. It's possible someone took the gifts by mistake or found them lying around." A wave of confusion rippled. The conversation grew chaotic. Serena, distressed, grabbed my arm. "Elena, do you think we should call the police? I can't believe someone would steal at a baby shower." I had no idea what to do. My mind was swirling with memories of that phone tip years ago. If the police came, would I be singled out again? Would Jordan spin a story? But how could I refuse without looking suspicious? In that moment, I realized Jordan had me cornered. If I resisted calling the police, it might appear I was hiding something. If I agreed, who knew what evidence might surface? Before I could decide, a shout went up from near the house. My mother had found something in a trash can, a gift card envelope. Inside was the baby shower card, minus the actual gift card. The handwriting matched the missing item. People crowded around. My mother looked heartbroken, glancing at me. "Elena, honey, do you know what's going on? This is so strange." Jordan stepped in, patting her shoulder. "Let's not jump to conclusions." Then he flashed me a look that said everything. This was his scene, his drama, carefully orchestrated. He was punishing me. But why now? I forced a calm facade. "Let's do a thorough search. Then if we can't find the missing gifts, we'll contact the police." Some guests nodded in agreement. We split up, combing the yard, the house, the garage. Nothing else turned up. Meanwhile, the mood of the party was ruined. People were uneasy, whispering. Serena looked stricken. I felt guilt for her sake, her special day overshadowed by theft. Jordan, for his part, wore a concerned mask, but I swore I saw satisfaction glinting in his eyes. This was revenge for me existing in his life, or for overshadowing him, or for the fact I never fully believed his apology. Malcolm, after conferring with a few guests, decided to call the non-emergency police line. Officers arrived, asked questions, took statements. They politely gathered details about who saw what. I repeated that I was mostly running around, setting up. My mother vouched for me. Jordan piped in with, "Yes, Elena was definitely busy. She might not have seen the theft." Again, it sounded supportive, but also left the door open for suspicion. The police took notes, said they'd file a report. Not much else they could do at the moment. They'd keep an eye out for suspicious activity. The guests were uneasy. Some left early, apologizing to Serena. She was teary, blaming herself for wanting such a big event. With the party effectively over, I helped clean up. My mother, trying to salvage the day, told Serena we'd figure out how to reimburse the stolen gifts. Serena was crestfallen. Jordan comforted her, whispering assurances. I overheard a snippet. "Don't worry, we'll figure out who's responsible." My blood went cold. He was definitely up to something. As the last guests trickled out, I retreated to my car, fighting tears. I felt humiliated. The shower had become a fiasco, and I suspected I'd be the scapegoat. Sure enough, the next morning I got a text from Serena. She was polite but clearly upset, asking if I knew anything about the missing gifts, if maybe some ended up in my trunk or among my decorations. She said she wasn't accusing me, but people were talking. She'd heard rumors that maybe I'd staged the theft for attention or something equally ridiculous. My heart pounded. I typed a long reply explaining how I had nothing to do with it, how I suspected a setup. But I couldn't bring myself to mention Jordan's name. Not yet. She was pregnant with his child, deeply in love. Accusing him without proof might push her away for good. So I simply denied any knowledge and told her I was sorry the shower got ruined. Over the following days, I heard from multiple people that Jordan was quietly expressing concern that I might have been under a lot of stress or not in a good financial place, implying maybe I took the gifts. It was classic Jordan spreading doubt while feigning sympathy. My anger boiled. One evening, my mother called, voice trembling, saying she'd heard from Malcolm that Jordan believed I might have orchestrated the theft as an act of revenge for our teenage feud. Malcolm, though supportive of me, was torn. Mom said, "It's happening all over again, Alina. He's planting seeds." I felt sick. That was Jordan's pattern. I told Mom I needed to confront him. I texted Jordan, demanding we meet face-to-face without Serena. To my surprise, he agreed, telling me to come to their loft while Serena was at a prenatal checkup. My stomach lurched as I drove over, recalling the last time he lured me into a trap. But I was tired of being a victim. I marched to the door, knocked. Jordan answered, looking casual in sweats and a t-shirt. He gestured me in, smirking. "Welcome, sis." I clenched my fists. "Cut the crap, Jordan. What do you think you're doing?" He feigned innocence. "I'm not doing anything. We have a theft problem, apparently." I stared him down, voice shaking with rage. "Stop framing me. I know you set this up. Why? Because you hate me that much?" Jordan rolled his eyes, wandering to the kitchen. "Hate's a strong word. I just think you never got your comeuppance for overshadowing me all those years. Always the golden child, adored by Mom and Malcolm. You had to be Miss Perfect. I was just balancing the scales." My jaw dropped at his blatant confession. He leaned on the counter, shrugging. "And it's so easy. People already suspect you. They remember the old rumors. They'll buy that you staged a sob story. I don't even need to forge anything this time. Just let the rumor mill do its work." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "You're destroying Serena's baby shower for some twisted revenge? She's your wife, for God's sake. She loves you." He waved a hand dismissively. "She'll get over it. She'll blame you or some unknown thief. I'll console her. I'm not worried about that." I felt sick. "You're monstrous," I hissed. He chuckled. "Don't be dramatic, Elena. No one's truly hurt. A few gifts are missing, big deal. We can reimburse them if needed. But your reputation? That's the real fun. Let's see how it feels to be on the defensive again." Tears stung my eyes. "Serena will find out who you are eventually." He gave a crooked smile. "Will she? By then we'll have a baby, be bonded for life. And if you try to blow the whistle, who will she believe? The father of her child or the stepsister who's always hated him?" My nails bit into my palms. I realized any direct confrontation could push Serena away. I turned to leave, fury and desperation swirling inside me. At the door, I paused. "I'm going to prove you did this. And when I do, Serena will know exactly what kind of man she married." Jordan shrugged, unaffected. "Good luck." I stumbled to my car, tears streaming. He was so sure of his manipulations. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Whispers circulated. A few people asked me directly if I was okay financially. My mother insisted she believed in me, but Malcolm was torn, wanting tangible proof. Serena grew distant, texting less often. I reached out offering to talk, but she politely declined, saying she was busy or tired. My heartbreak was immense. Losing her trust was devastating. I needed evidence to exonerate myself and expose Jordan. I started snooping, reaching out to the folks who lost gifts at the shower. One told me they saw a figure lurking by the table at one point, tall with short blonde hair, but didn't see his face. Another recalled that Jordan conveniently ushered them to the other side of the yard right before they noticed their gift missing. Piece by piece, a pattern emerged. Jordan orchestrated distractions while the gifts vanished. But I needed something concrete. My best lead came from the caterer, the friend Jordan recommended. Maybe he saw something. So I visited the restaurant, asked to speak with that friend. He was a young man named Ricky. When I asked if he'd noticed anything suspicious, he got fidgety, refused eye contact. Eventually, after some gentle prodding, Ricky admitted Jordan had told him to look away at certain times or mind his own business. Ricky suspected something shady but never questioned it because Jordan was a friend and paying him under the table. Ricky agreed to put that in writing if needed, though he seemed scared. It wasn't bulletproof evidence, but it was a start. I also found a neighbor who lived next to my mother and Malcolm. She had a security camera that partially overlooked their backyard. Hoping it might have captured the baby shower, I politely asked if I could check the footage. She obliged. Scrubbing through the video, we saw glimpses of the party. The angle wasn't great, but around the time the gifts went missing, we caught a blurry figure near the gift table. The footage was grainy, but it looked like a tall man wearing a specific color shirt Jordan had worn that day. The figure rummaged under the table, then slipped behind the garage, presumably where the empty wrap was found. My heart hammered with excitement. It was shaky evidence, but if Serena saw this, equipped with the neighbor's video file and Ricky's partial confession, I felt I had enough to confront Serena. If she wanted to see the truth, she'd see it. I dreaded the possibility she might still side with Jordan, but I had to try. I texted her, asked if we could talk privately. She agreed, invited me over while Jordan was supposedly out. When I arrived, though, I found Jordan there too, sitting on the couch. My stomach tightened. He smirked. "Hello, Elena. Serena said you have something urgent?" Serena looked uneasy, her pregnant belly more pronounced. "Yes, you said you wanted to share something?" I glanced at Jordan, then told Serena we needed privacy. She hesitated, then nodded to Jordan, who refused to leave. "If it involves me, I want to hear it," he insisted. "Fine." I steeled myself. I pulled out my phone, explaining that I'd done some investigating. Jordan's face hardened. Serena listened, wide-eyed, as I played the neighbor's footage on my phone. The figure near the gift table wore an outfit very similar to Jordan's that day, moving in a suspicious manner. The figure's face was never fully shown, but the height and build matched. Then I relayed Ricky's statement, how Jordan told him to look away. Serena's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Jordan, is this true?" He scoffed, shooting me a furious glare. "This video is blurry. That could be anyone. We had multiple tall blonde guests, and this Ricky guy is lying." I pressed on. "No one else had motive. You pulled the same stunt years ago, remember? Framing me for theft. You're doing it again." Serena looked torn. "Jordan, I need you to be honest." He put on his best wounded expression. "I can't believe you'd suspect me. Elena's always hated me. She's never gotten over the past. She's forging an accusation to break us apart." I almost laughed at the audacity. I pleaded with Serena, "Look at the footage. Listen to what Ricky said. Does it not fit the pattern of Jordan distracting people while gifts disappeared? Why would multiple guests claim they saw a tall blonde figure near the table? Who else fits that description?" Tears rolled down Serena's cheeks. She turned to Jordan. "Please, just tell me. You can't lie about something this big. Not now." Jordan's mask slipped momentarily. He glared at me with venom. Then he laid it on thick, wrapping an arm around Serena's shoulders. "Honey, you know me. I'm not a thief. This is Elena's vendetta. She's never forgiven me. I apologized for the teenage thing, but she can't let it go, and now she's contriving evidence." Serena sobbed, stuck between us. My heart ached for her. "If you won't admit it, Jordan, I'll show this video to everyone," I warned. He shrugged. "Go ahead, it's inconclusive. All you'll do is cause drama." Serena demanded we both leave, saying she needed time alone. She was overwhelmed, tears streaming as she begged us to give her space. I left, sorrow choking me. Another stalemate. Jordan continued to gaslight, and Serena was too emotional to decide. The next few days, I heard nothing. I texted Serena, no response. My mother said Serena was staying with her sister, trying to think. Meanwhile, Jordan texted me a nasty message, "Hope you're happy stressing out a pregnant woman." I felt sick with guilt, but also resolute that the truth had to come out. A week later, Serena showed up at my apartment looking exhausted. She said Jordan insisted the footage was doctored, that Ricky was bribed by me. She didn't know what to believe. I carefully showed her the raw video files, the timestamps, let her speak to the neighbor who had them. She concluded the footage was genuine. She asked me more about the teenage theft fiasco. For the first time, she listened in detail, my perspective of how Jordan systematically framed me. Tears welled in her eyes. Why would he do this to me? To his own wife? Sabotage our baby shower? I gently said, he's never grown past his hatred for me. He used you as a bridge to get close. Or maybe he genuinely loves you in his twisted way. But he wanted to humiliate me again. He's cunning, Serena. She wept, confessing that certain manipulative tendencies had surfaced in their relationship, but she'd brushed them off. She recalled how he sometimes guilted her about her friendships or overshadowed her career goals. Still, she was pregnant with his baby. Breaking up wasn't simple. I love him, she sobbed, but I can't ignore this. He framed you again. He lied to me. I held her as she cried, my own tears forming. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I never wanted this. I just wanted to protect myself from his games. She nodded, trembling. I need to confront him, but what if he denies it again? I suggested couples counseling or demanding a confession in a safe environment. She said she'd try. Meanwhile, I told her I'd stand by her if she needed anything, that she should keep the evidence safe. She thanked me, promising she wouldn't let him spin it. I prayed she meant it. Another tense week passed. Serena texted me that she confronted Jordan with the video again, threatened to leave unless he admitted the truth. He exploded in anger, called me a liar, insisted she choose him or me. She walked out, staying with her sister again. My heartbreak deepened. My best friend was in turmoil. Then, abruptly, Jordan contacted me, furious. He raged that I was destroying his marriage out of spite. I told him calmly that he destroyed his own marriage the moment he sabotaged the baby shower. He cursed me, threatened legal action if I kept slandering him. I hung up. 2 days later, Serena served him with separation papers. She told me she couldn't stay with a man who lied so blatantly, who tormented her best friend. She needed time to figure out custody arrangements after the baby was born. Jordan's meltdown was epic. He harassed Serena, pleaded with Malcolm. The step tried to rally her family to his side. But the evidence was strong enough that most people believed Serena. My mother and Malcolm were dismayed but recognized Jordan's pattern. They offered Serena support. I tried not to rejoice in his downfall. It wasn't about revenge. I felt sad for Serena, for the baby soon to enter a fractured home. But I was relieved that I wasn't alone in my knowledge of the truth anymore. As the months passed, Serena moved forward with the separation. She sought therapy, focusing on her pregnancy and emotional well-being. She and I grew closer again. She apologized for not believing me sooner, for letting Jordan manipulate her. I assured her I understood love can blind us. She insisted I be there when the baby was born. Meanwhile, Jordan lurked in the background, occasionally sending nasty messages or forcing legal battles over paternal rights. Serena refused to reconcile, citing the shower theft fiasco as the final straw in a pattern of emotional manipulation. It was messy, heartbreaking, but at least we were free of the charade. Eventually, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She invited me to the delivery room as her support person. It was an emotional experience, seeing that tiny life come into the world. Jordan arrived hours later, demanded to see his son, tried to guilt Serena, but the hospital staff kept him at a distance to avoid stress. My mother visited, tearful at meeting her step-grandson under such circumstances. Malcolm extended cautious support, torn about his son's actions, but wanting to be there for the new baby. The circle of tension persisted, yet Serena found solace in the bright-eyed infant she named Adrian. She told me she was determined to raise him in a loving environment, free of manipulative influences. She filed for primary custody, offering Jordan supervised visitation. The legal process began. In the aftermath, the story of the baby shower fiasco circulated among friends and relatives. People realized Jordan had tried to sabotage me again, and that he was the reason gifts went missing. Some folks apologized for doubting me. Others just shook their heads at the drama. I tried to move on, focusing on my job, my mother, and supporting Serena as she navigated single motherhood. Though it was a messy resolution, at least I no longer carried the weight of false accusations. My name was cleared, Serena saw Jordan's true colors, and the baby was safe with her. Jordan slunk back to his manipulative corners, presumably plotting how to re-enter his child's life on his terms. Sometimes, late at night, I reflect on the sheer absurdity of it all. My stepbrother, who framed me for theft as a teenager, married my best friend, then repeated the same twisted game at their baby shower only to lose everything when the truth surfaced. If I weren't living it, I'd think it was fiction. Yet, surprisingly, I've gleaned a sort of resilience from these ordeals. I learned that boundaries matter, that I can't let guilt or fear force me to place-hate someone who's proven they'll hurt me. I learned that real friends eventually see the truth, even if it takes time. And I learned that sometimes closure doesn't come neatly. It often arrives in a messy splatter of revelations and heartbreak. Serena and I remain best friends. I stand as Adrian's godmother, spoiling him with picture books and stuffed animals. She found a stable routine, working part-time, living in a cozy apartment. The legal custody arrangement forced Jordan to abide by supervised visits for a time, though that may change as the courts see fit. He rarely contacts me anymore. Our last interaction was him spewing some bitterness about how I'd won. But I never wanted a competition. I just wanted to protect myself and the people I love. Looking back, I see that Jordan was always haunted by insecurity, envy, and a desire for control. In his twisted mind, framing me was a means to regain power. Perhaps if we'd had therapy or a more functional environment as teenagers, things might have turned out differently. But I can't rewrite the past. What I can do is shape my own future. I still love event planning, ironically. Maybe one day I'll plan a baby shower again, hopefully for someone who isn't out to ruin me. And so, life moves forward. I wake each day grateful for a stable job, a circle of supportive people, and the knowledge that I survived the worst a toxic step-sibling could throw at me. My mother and Malcolm continue to be supportive, though they lament how Jordan has alienated himself. I occasionally catch glimpses of him on social media living a solitary existence. He might find someone else to manipulate eventually, but I won't be part of that narrative. As for Serena, her heart is healing. She has her son, a testament to her own inner strength. She's talked about starting a blog on motherhood, using her journalism background to reach other women who've navigated manipulative relationships. I encourage her wholeheartedly. We've discussed writing a more factual account of everything that happened, but decided we're not ready to open that can of worms publicly. Maybe someday. For now, we're content forging a life anchored by genuine friendship, untainted by lies. Sometimes I still feel pangs of sadness that it all unfolded like this. My best friend's wedding overshadowed by hidden malice, her marriage undone by the same man who once nearly destroyed my teenage life. I wonder if Jordan feels remorse at night or if he sleeps soundly, blaming everyone but himself. In the end, those questions might not matter. The baby shower fiasco was the final reveal of who he really was, allowing Serena and me to break free from his manipulations once and for all. So yes, my stepbrother framed me for theft, married my best friend, and then tried to force me to plan their baby shower. It sounds like tabloid fodder, but it was my reality. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Yet, from the ashes of that chaos, I found a renewed sense of self-worth and a deeper bond with Serena. We discovered that while trust can be broken by falsehoods, it can also be rebuilt on shared honesty and love. And that's the glimmer of hope I hold onto, the belief that even in the darkest drama, we can emerge stronger, wiser, and more determined to shield the ones we care about from harm. If there's one lesson above all, it's this. Family bonds can be twisted, friends can be deceived, but staying true to yourself and pursuing the truth can cut through the lies. It might not fix everything overnight, but it prevents you from drowning in the undertow of someone else's vengeance. I found my way to the surface. Serena found hers. Serena found hers. We're still learning how to breathe freely after nearly suffocating under Jordan's manipulative storm, but every day we inhale a bit more deeply. We choose to live unburdened by his darkness, and that might be the most triumphant ending we could have, even if the scars remain. Life moves on. Adrian grows older, cooing in my arms sometimes, oblivious to the turmoil that preceded his birth. Serena and I daydream about traveling once her finances and schedule allow. We talk about all the silly baby shower games we'll never play again, especially not ones involving unscrupulous stepbrothers. And in those moments, I realize that for all the heartbreak, we still have something precious. A friendship stronger than betrayal, a future free from illusions, and a quiet faith that no matter what twists fate throws our way, we'll handle it together.